Hey everyone, Slender here, and today we've got a build video. So, I've been playing this game since launch, since beta. I have like almost 1,800 hours. Been playing a lot, way too much. But, what can I say? I love the game. And surprisingly, this build has not come across my radar at all. This build is called the Blacksmith build. It was created by a good friend of mine, 𝙏𝙖𝙢𝙢𝙢. He's a really good mage, really good in PvP, does a lot of OPR, and he's just been tearing it up with this build. It's really a lot of fun. It's got great CC, it's got great damage, it has high mobility, it's a light build, Firestaff and Warhammer. And that's how he got the name Blacksmith, fire, hammer. So thought it was kind of cool. Now, if anybody has questions about this build, has maybe any suggestions, how we can refine it, make it better, it is still a work in progress. That's one of the things 𝙏𝙏𝙢𝙢𝙢 wanted me to mention in this build, is that it's not 100% complete yet. He's still really dialing in the armor. The attributes are pretty much set, and the skills are pretty much set. The only thing he's really still working on is, the armor and the perks. So we're going to go over the skill trees for both the Warhammer and the Firestaff. We're going to go over the attributes, what you want to push for, which milestones you want to get, and stuff like that. So we're going to go over everything. Then I'm also going to show you guys some footage of how to play the build, some tips and tricks, and pretty much everything that has to do with the Blacksmith build. So it's a lot of fun, really good in 1v1s. It's not a war build, it's not a PvE build. This is really geared towards like OPR and 1v1 duels, maybe even 3v3s when it comes up. So that's what it is. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So the first thing we're going to get into right off the bat are the actual skills we're going to be using. This build relies heavily on fireball and flamethrower. We use burnout for the mobility, for escapes, for gap closers, and also for a little bit of damage. But these are going to be your three abilities: burnout, flamethrower, and fireball. In the fire mage tree, we're going to pick up pretty much every single talent in here, and we're going to go for Rune of Helios, or Helios, however you want to pronounce it. So first thing we're going to pick up is spell focus. So this is going to give your heavy attacks 5% mana whenever you hit, and we are going to be using heavy attacks, we're going to be using light attacks, we're pretty much going to be using everything. The Fiery Restoration, heavy attacks reduce the Firestaff cooldowns by 10% on hit. That's pretty big, very important skill. And then next on the second row, we're going to be using Clear Mind. So while holding a Firestaff and above 50% mana, you're going to gain 5% in power, which just increases your damage by 5%. So very important. And we're getting all these so that we can get, again, Runes of Helios. And this is pretty much your only option, if you're not using Meteor Shower or Pillar of Fire. So Singe, light attacks inflict the stack of burning on foes, dealing 6% weapon damage each second for 6 seconds. You can get 5 stacks max. So again, another thing that we're going to be doing with light attacks, it's going to actually give the burning dot, so that's going to be nice if you hit it. Clear casting, so after not taking damage from an attack in the last 3 seconds, deal 5% more damage. So just another increase in damage there. Spell Slinger, this is probably one of the biggest, most important perks in this tree, and that's going to be critical strike chance. So you're going to get 10% crit, and that's huge. That's absolutely huge, and that's going to pair very well with Prophet of the Fire God, which when you have the Firestaff, your critical strike damage is increased by 15%. So we're going to have extra 10% crit chance and 15% crit damage. Let's see, we're also going to take Flare, so heavy attacks no longer consume any mana. If we didn't have this, you would be running out of mana pretty quick. Heavy attacks are definitely used in this build, again, so are light attacks. And then last but not least, Rune of Helios. Everybody that's a fire mage knows what this does, but I'll say it anyway. So whenever you use an ability with the Firestaff, you're going to get a rune on the ground, and it's basically going to give you a 25% damage increase while you're standing there. So it's pretty big, and that lasts for 7 seconds. And then we're going to take Fireball, of course. And one thing with the Fireball, and again, you fire mages probably already know this, but with the Fireball, you don't really want to try getting direct hits. It is difficult. What you want to do is you want to pretty much aim at the feet. You want to aim at their feet. It's going to do the same damage. They deal 140% weapon damage on impact, and leaves a 3-meter burning field that lasts for 6 seconds. And that burning field does 10% weapon damage every second. And then we're also going to take the first perk on this one, which is Scorched Earth. Fireball's burning field lasts for 9 seconds. So instead of 6 seconds, it's going to last 9 seconds. And we don't take catch because we're not really going for those direct hits. It's just too hard to get those direct hits. Whenever you use Fireball, you want to aim for the feet. It's a lot easier to hit. You're going to have, a lot easier time hitting with those fireballs by aiming at their feet. So that's why we don't take catch. Now in the Pyromancer build, we're going to go ahead and pick up Flamethrower and Burnout. We're going to take all 3 perks for Flamethrower, both perks for Burnout, and we're going to get Pyromania. So while you have your Firestaff and you're below 50% max health, you're going to deal an increase or deal 15% more damage, which is pretty big. And, when you're dueling, there's going to be plenty of times that you're below 50% max health. Hopefully not, but, So Flamethrower, for anybody that doesn't know, it's basically a flamethrower. It does 50% weapon damage every half second. So it ticks very fast. Each hit also gives you a stack of burning, dealing another 6% weapon damage for 6 seconds, stacks up to 5 times. And we're going to take, obviously, Fire's Reach. It increases the range of the flamethrower by 50%. And man, that is huge. That goes way further than you would think. It really has a pretty damn good distance, a lot further than you would expect. So that's a really good talent to take. Internal Flame or Infernal Flames increase the base damage by flamethrower by 25%. That's a no-brainer. And then Pyro Dancer, also a no-brainer. There is absolutely no cooldown. So whenever you're in trouble, whenever this ensures that you always have an ability to use. And believe it or not, Flamethrower hurts. If you guys have been playing OPR lately, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Those Flamethrower guys, it hurts. It does a lot of damage. So with Burnout again, that's going to be our gap closer. That's going to be our escape. It's going to be our extra mobility. I mean, it does a ton of stuff. It does damage. I mean, I think it's one of the best abilities in the game. So you're going to dash forward up to 11 meters through players. You're going to deal almost 130 weapon damage on hit. And when you hit them, they're also going to get burning. Pretty much every ability causes burning. That deals 10% weapon damage each second for 8 seconds. And then we're going to take All In, which all your Firestaff cooldowns are reduced by 5% for each foe hit. I mean, it's not huge, but it's definitely a help. You're only going to be hitting 1 to 2 people, maybe 3 people if you're doing a 3v3. But it's not the greatest perk, but the next perk is, and that's why we're taking All In, because we need Heated Up. Burnout goes 50% further, so that's huge. You're going to have much more distance that you can cover. It makes the escapes that much better. Gap closing that much easier. So very, very, very good perk for Burnout. It's a must-have. So this is your build. Feel free to change it up a little bit, but this build is centered around the Flamethrower and Fireball. So just keep that in mind if you want to change things up a little bit. So next up is the Warhammer tree, and our 3 abilities that we're going to be using with the Warhammer are Armor Breaker, Wrecking Ball, and of course Shockwave. I think every single Warhammer build is going to have Shockwave. It's just too good to pass up. So what's the Warhammer for? The Warhammer is not going to be used for damage. It is going to be used mainly for CC and utility. So as a Firestaff user, you're going to want to stay, pretty good distance. You're going to want to be slinging those fireballs, slinging those light attacks, those heavy attacks. And if the player is a melee, this is where the Warhammer shines. If they get in close, you're gonna punish them for getting in close. Okay? So when they get in close, you're gonna want to use Shockwave, you're gonna want to stun them, you're gonna want to hit them with Wrecking Ball, flatten them, you're gonna want to hit them with Armor Breaker. It's all about reducing their armor and keeping them still and punishing them when they go in for melee range. That's what it's all about. We're not going for damage here. We're not going to be using heavy attacks. We're not really even going to be using light attacks. We're going to be using stuns, CC, like flatten, and we're going to be reducing, their armor to make them take more damage. That's what it's all about. Not damage, but, just CCing them, keeping them from attacking you pretty much, and just punishing them for when they get in close. And it's really, really hard to deal with this build, because this build has amazing range. It also has amazing CC. You know, you have stuff to fight against melee players, and you have stuff to fight against range players. It's like everything grouped in one big scary package. So we're gonna start off with Armor Breaker. So that's a it's gonna penetrate 35% of the target's armor. So you know, it's pretty much got armor penetration, and it's gonna deal quite a bit of weapon damage too, 140%. So the other thing that makes Armor Breaker great are these two perks. So one, you're going to have grit, so it can't be interrupted. You know, you're going to be able to guarantee that this always hits, you know, if you're at the right range, etc., etc. But this is a really good one, lasting trauma. So you're going to rend the target, and that's going to be 20% rend for 10 seconds. That is huge. So that's like one of the best abilities in here is the rend. And I mean, this is good for PvE also. We're just focusing on PvP, you know, mainly 1v1s and OPR. But yeah, the rend is huge. That's why we're taking Armor Breaker, for the rend, not for the damage. We're also going to be using Wrecking Ball, another great CC. So you're going to strike the ground with your hammer. You're going to deal 130% weapon damage, and you're going to flatten your target, meaning you're going to knock them down. And we're going to pick up both of these perks that go with it. You're going to gain Fortify, so that's going to give you 20% damage resistance for 7 seconds. That's actually pretty big, very important. And also Breathing Room. So anybody, if you're fighting multiple targets, anybody within 1.5 meters of the impact point are also going to be knocked down or flattened. We're also going to pick up exhaustive attacks. So all the abilities that you're going to be using with the Warhammer apply exhaust. So basically, you're going to drain their stamina. They're going to be not running out of stamina, but they're not going to be getting their stamina back as quickly. And when you're playing against this build, I mean, you're going to be dodging the whole time, or you're going to get killed. You have to be dodging, and anything that we can do to remove your stamina or make you use your stamina, bait out the stamina, bait out those dodges, and slow your stamina recovery is going to be big. So that's why we're taking exhaustive attacks. And we're also going to pick up Power Through Pain. So it's just a damage thing. You're going to deal 35% extra damage for 1 second after taking any damage. Again, this isn't really about damage, but we're going to pick this up because it's pretty much the best out of all the other ones. We're not going to be using any heavy attacks with the Warhammer. We're just using the Warhammer for CC and for debuffing the opponent. Now, Shockwave is the only one we're going to pick up in this category, in the Crowd Crusher talent tree. And that's because it's probably one of the best CCs in the game. It's an actual stun. So you're going to slam your Warhammer into the ground. Everybody's been hit by this. It is it sucks when you get hit by this. When you get hit by this, you could pretty much kiss your ass goodbye. It's game over, because he's going to, or you're going to be, hitting him with Flatten. You're going to be hitting him with Armor Breaker. You're also going to probably take a couple light hits. Or light attacks rather. And when you go to run away, you're going to get flamethrowered to death. It is so frustrating. I hate fighting people with this build. It is crazy. So yeah, that's pretty much it. You slam your Warhammer into the ground, causing a 3-meter radius earthquake that deals 80% weapon damage and stuns all targets for 2 seconds. That's huge. It's not just a root, it's a stun. You can't pot, you can't dodge, you can't do anything. You can't attack, nothing. You're just stuck there, and you're about to take a bunch of damage. And yeah, and you know what? You wouldn't think that the 3-meter radius is very big, but it's actually quite a big distance. Just when you think you're far enough away, it still stuns you, and it is super frustrating. So this is definitely a must-have. We're also going to pick up Frailty. That's the first perk in this one. The trauma of the attack causes weaken, so it's going to decrease the damage dealt from the target's attacks by 10% for 10 seconds. So it's a weaken for 10 seconds by 10%. Pretty good. And we're also going to take Meteoric Crater, so it expands the range of Shockwave to a 4-meter radius. So you get an extra meter, and it is really significant. That extra meter definitely helps a lot. So as far as the perks, and the reason we're getting all the perks in this tree is because we want Aftershock. So whenever you're affected by crowd control, now that is Shockwave, that's also Flatten. I mean, those are both crowd control. So 2 out of your 3 attacks are crowd control. So they're always going to have Aftershock, and you're basically going to be slowed another crowd control by 20% for 4 seconds. So when you're slowed, it's super hard, and you're gonna see in the gameplay, it's super hard to get away from that damn flamethrower. Like, it feels like anytime you go into melee range, when you're playing against this build, they are constantly, you know, you just don't, you don't even want to go to melee range, but you don't want to stay too far away either, because you're getting hit with the fireballs and everything else. So it's like, what do you do? That's why it's so hard to play against, and it's really, really, really good. But yeah, when you get in too close, you're going to get CC'd, you're going to be slowed, and then as you try to run away, as your health just slams to the ground and you try to run away, you're going to get flamethrowered to death. So we're going to take Outnumbered, increase damage absorption by 10% if surrounded by 2 or more enemies within 3 meters. I mean, it's okay. I can do this all day. Reduce stamina consumption by 30% when blocking melee attacks. Another, it's all right. Guarded Sprint, reduce damage taken by 10% while sprinting, and you are going to be running around a lot. I mean, every class is going to be doing that. Concussive Impact, deal 15% increased damage against targets affected by Warhammer debuff. So your target's constantly going to have Warhammer debuffs anytime they get in melee range. Facilitated Expedition, after hitting a target with an active debuff, gain haste. So that's going to give you a movement speed, and you definitely need movement speed with this build. It's a light build. There's going to be a lot of dodging, a lot of running. So definitely want to pick that up. Prevailing Spirit, regain 35% of damage dealt as health when using a Crowd Crusher ability. So anytime you stun, you're going to be getting your health back. 35% of the damage dealt is going to be given back as health. So it's like not a life steal, but it's really nice. It's an extra heal. And you're going to be doing Shockwave every time they're in melee range. But you want to bait out that dodge before you do it. You don't want them to bait out your Shockwave. Resurgence, after 2 light attacks of the Warhammer, debuff durations on player are reduced by 25%. That's all right. But this is the big one, Aftershock. So anytime you get hit by Flatten, anytime you get hit by Shockwave, you're going to be slowed by a lot for a long time, 4 seconds and 20%. So those are the abilities. Now we're going to get into the actual. So let's take a look at the attributes. The attributes that you're going to be looking for this build are pretty basic. We're going to be using 50 Dex, 300 Int, and 150 Constitution. You may be wondering, well, it's a intelligence build. Why the heck do we want Int? We're not using a musket, or Dexterity. We're not using a musket or anything like that. No, but we are using crit, and 50 points into Dexterity is going to get you a 5% extra crit chance, which is huge, and it's a must-have for this build. You want as much crit as you can get. The 300 intelligence, I mean, that pretty much speaks for itself. If you're a great axe user or a Warhammer, you're going to want 300 strength. If you're a bow user, you're going to want 300 dex. If you're a healer, you're going to want 300 focus. The fall off or the diminishing returns, when you put more than 300 points into something, is pretty significant, and it's significant enough not to really want to do that. I mean, of course, there are some people that build just an absolute glass cannon and go with like 400 dex or even more. And you could do that, but it's not advisable for this build. You're going to want some constitution. You're going to need some dex. And this is the perfect ratio that me and Alabar have found. So, and one of the main things you're looking for in the intelligence, I mean, all these are good. The damage on first hit on full health, the 330% duration of damage over time spells, that's for our burns and stuff. But the big one that we want is this one right here, 200. So we're going to get 10 mana after every dodge. And that's huge. And you really want to focus on that. This build, you're going to be dodging a lot. When they come in close and you stun them and you lock them down, you do your combo, the Shockwave, the Flatten, the, what is it called? Whatever it is when the armor breaker. So when you do all that, they're going to be so low on health, they're going to have no option other than run away. And when they run away, that's when you're going to pull out your flamethrower. That's when you're going to start chasing them down, and you're going to dodge. You're going to dodge, get some mana back, and then flamethrower, dodge, flamethrower, dodge, flamethrower. That's going to keep you mobile. That's going to keep you moving around and hard to hit. And it's also going to be replenishing your mana. And your flamethrower has no cooldown, so that's what makes this so great. And that's, we really, really want to take advantage of this, 10 plus 10 mana after a dodge. It's going to be amazing. And then the Constitution, I mean, the first one's a big one. Your health pots are going to be 20% stronger. That's pretty significant. The increase to max health by 10% of your physical armor. Not the greatest for a light armor user, but I mean, it does help. And then this one, the critical damage taken, negative 10%. That's going to be pretty big. That's like having more resilience. So definitely something that we want. So yeah, 50 dex, 300 int, 150 constitution. That's what you want to go for. And we're going to be using the pork belly fried rice. Pork belly fried rice gives you 24 con and 16 intelligence, and that's going to help us get our numbers. So now let's move into the armor, the perks, and you know, the fun stuff. This is my favorite part. All right, so now it's time to talk about the gear. This is my favorite spot, or my favorite part of the video, favorite part of the build, favorite part of the game, actually. I love gear. So first things first, let's go over the perks. So you're going to want Empowering Fireball. That's number one. You can't do this build unless you have Empowering Fireball. You can get away with not having Accelerating Flamethrower or the Sundering Shockwave. You know, those are both really good perks and you really want them in this build, but you can get away with not having them, but you do need to have Empowering Fireball. Now, before we get into the attributes and the other perks that we're going to want to get, I just want to talk really quick about some of the abilities. So Accelerating Flamethrower is going to give you haste, 20% haste, movement speed with 3 stacks of burn. So whenever you hit them with the flamethrower, once you get 3 stacks of burn on them, you're going to move faster. Now, we also took the perk that gives you a longer flamethrower, you know, 50% more reach. And we also have the 200 points in intellect, which gives you 10 mana whenever you dodge. So when you're using flamethrower, you're not going to want to just hold it down or just use it and just keep walking. That's not what you want to do. You want to hit flamethrower, you want to dodge to get some mana back, hit flamethrower, dodge, rinse and repeat. And that's also going to lead me into the next segment, which is stamina. You'll notice on the featherweight ring, which we're using, by the way, because it gives us 25 dex, and we do need dex in this build, so this is a perfect ring. It's got refreshing, which is great. It has hardy, which gives us more stamina and also more crit chance. Remember, this build is dependent on crit, lots of stamina, and cooldown reduction. So that's how you're going to use the flamethrower. So that's really important about this build. Alabar wanted me to make sure that you guys understand when you use flamethrower, you're going to use it, you're going to dodge, use it again, because we also have no cooldown for the flamethrower. Okay, so when they come in to melee range, it's time to punish them. You're going to use your shockwave, you're going to stun them. While they're stunned, you're going to hit them with flatten. While they're down, you're going to hit them with armor breaker. That's a 3-hit combo, and you're going to guarantee all 3 hits, or the other 2 hits whenever you hit them with shockwave. It's a guaranteed thing. If you've ever played For Honor and you really got competitive about it and did ranked and you really wanted to learn your class, you'll know that there's certain conditions where you can get guaranteed either light hits, heavy hits, a combination of both, and you have to do that every time. So every time you hit shockwave, you're going to follow this procedure. As soon as you hit them with the shockwave, you're going to flatten them. As soon as you hit them with flatten and they're on the ground, you're going to hit armor breaker. And then they're going to run and you're going to chase them down with flamethrower. And I'm going to show you guys that in the gameplay after this segment. So just to wrap this up, you can use any gear that has either int, constitution, both, int first, con second, con first, in second, it doesn't matter. You just have to have those attributes. And you know, you can manipulate the rest of the attributes to get, you know, your 300, your 150, and your 50, you know, when you're in the attribute screen. So it doesn't really matter if this piece has all int or this piece has all constitution. You need it both. You need all of it. And then you can finish it out by, you know, updating and managing your stats in the attribute screen. Now the strength, don't worry too much about that. Again, this build isn't completely finished. It's not completely polished. We're still refining it. And, you know, you're going to be building this as you go. You're not going to get every single perfect piece. So that's okay. Obviously, the ideal situation would be no strength and either more constitution. Pretty much, yeah, there's more constitution, or you could start putting more points into intellect to get over that 300 mark. Either way is fine. So we know the main attributes that we want. Either int, con, or both is fine, whatever combinations. Now, freedom. This is a freedom build. when you have 5 pieces of freedom, it is crazy. Now, right now, the freedom isn't even working at its full potential. It's bugged currently, I believe. So once they get that fixed, it's going to be even more crazy. So your main 2 perks that you want are freedom and resilient. Now remember, this is a PvP build. This is not a PvE build. This isn't a war build either. This is more of a OPR 1v1, 2v2, 3v3 build. So those are your main 2 stats. The other 2 perks that you can use are refreshing, which would be amazing, or refreshing evasion, because you're going to be dodging a lot. Every class should be dodging a lot. So refreshing just removes or gives you more cooldown reduction across the board, and that's going to be huge for this build. You can sling out more fireballs. You can use more stuns more frequently. You know, it's just all across the board. Refreshing is going to be great. So our ideal piece of gear would look something like this. So this right here would be the ideal piece of gear to get. Absolutely, hands down, best in the game. Resilient, refreshing, and freedom. All 3. These are your 3 main perks you want to use. Now, if you can't find something with all 3, that's no problem. Just get the 2. And it doesn't matter. Like if you can't find a piece with freedom and resilience, but you can find a piece with freedom and refreshing, grab it. That's okay. As long as it has freedom on it. And, you know, resilient would be number 2, refreshing would be number 3. And, you know, when we're doing these tournaments and stuff and doing PvP and organized PvP, if you know what you're going against, you can either, you know, sub out freedom for something else for refreshing or vice versa. But freedom is really going to be great for pretty much any class that has some type of CC, you know, Ice Gauntlet, Great Axe, Warhammer, you know, anything that has CC, freedom's going to be great. So those are your main 3 perks that you want. And again, you can mix them up a little bit, but one more thing, you do want to go for 5 pieces with freedom. If you're not able to get 5, then I wouldn't even focus on freedom. You really need to stack all 5 pieces to make this effective. So if you can only get a couple pieces here and there, you know, I mean, you could still use it, but start focusing on more refreshing or something like that. That's going to be more useful. 1 or 2 pieces of freedom isn't going to do anything. You really need to have 5. But you know, you could start storing it up, start saving pieces of gear that have freedom, and once you have all 5, you're going to be set. So one more thing we're going to talk about is the gems. So the gem for your Warhammer doesn't really matter too much. I mean, you could put a ruby in there or something that converts part of the damage to intelligence. That's definitely going to be the way to go, whether you want, you know, fire, ice, even, you know, whatever. Just make sure it has an int modifier on it. Or conversion or whatever you want to call it. But for the Firestaff, you're going to want a gambit. Why? Because our stamina is never going to be full. You're going to be dodging all over the place. You need to be dodging all over the place. We're wearing light gear, which by the way, we're going to wear everything light except for the chest. If you go with anytime you go with a light build, you always want to have a medium chest because you're going to get a bunch more armor. Having a light chest just does not make sense at all. But back to the Firestaff, we're going to be dodging all the time. We get mana on dodge, so that's why we're going to be dodging. If you have refreshing evasion, you're going to want to be dodging. So we're going to be dodging regardless, and this makes Gambit the perfect gem to put in your Firestaff. So, you know, that's pretty much it, guys. You know, the amulet, the earring, it's all your basic stuff. Nimble's really good because we want that stamina regen. Party's amazing because we want more stamina. Divine and health, I mean, obviously this is going to be a great amulet and great perks for any build at all. So this is your stuff. This is what you want to be looking for. If you guys have any questions about this, let me know in the comments. Me and Alabar will get to you and you know, let you know what we think. So on to the gameplay and actually how to PvP with this build. All right, so how do you play this build? The nice thing is the concept is super simple to grasp. It's not super easy to pull off in the beginning, but once you do it over and over, it's going to get a lot easier. And yeah, it's actually pretty basic. So you're going to start out by putting a lot of pressure on them if they're arranged. You know, keep throwing those fireballs, keep throwing the lights, the heavies, mix it up, and you know, and fireball every once in a while. Once they get into melee range, you're going to want to bait out their stamina. Wait till, you know, you see them using a bunch of dodges, and when they're either out of stamina or close to being out of stamina, or they go in for attack, you use your shockwave. If you hit them with your shockwave, that's when it's pretty much game over, because you're going to stun them, then you're going to flatten them, and then you're going to hit them with armor breaker. It's going to be a 3-hit combo. It does a ton of damage. Now they have rend. The armor breaker goes through the armor, and now they're so far down that their only option is going to be to run away. And what do? You pull out the flamethrower and you chase them down. Anytime you crit, you're going to have that keen speed. You also have the accelerating flamethrower, and you're going to be dodging to replenish your mana, and all this coupled together, and you're just going to chase them down. You're going to kill them every time. So if you hit them with the shockwave, it's pretty much game over. It really is. And when they create that distance, if they have any, escapes or whatever, and they start running, you just keep the pressure on. And to chase them down, if they do get far enough away, you just use burnout. If they have a smidgen of health left, use burnout. It's a crazy, crazy combination. It is so good and so much fun, and it is so hard to counter. It really is. So again, just to recap, you keep the pressure on them when they're at range. You keep throwing those light and heavies. When they get close enough, or when they're out of stamina and they go in for for a move, you just hit them with shockwave. Once you hit them with shockwave, you hit them with the flatten. Once you hit them with flatten, you hit them with the armor breaker, and then once they start trying to run away, you don't let them. You finish them off with flamethrower and burnout, and it's as simple as that. So I'm going to go ahead and let this play for a little bit so you guys can see what it's like. And one thing that's definitely going to help, you're going to have to practice getting those heavy and light attacks down, and how to lead your target, how to hit their feet with the fireball, and all that stuff. So just start practicing, go do some OPR. And I want you guys to report back. Let me know how this build does for you. And if you have any questions, Alabar is on the YouTube channel, so he can answer any questions. I'm going to be playing this build a lot, and really start to refine it. And yeah, I'll answer the questions too. So let me know how it works. Leave a comment if you have any questions. And that's all I've got for you guys. I hope you enjoy the guide, and good luck to you. Have a great day, everybody. Take it easy.